When it was announced that this year's Tribeca Festival would open with a premiere of the HBO documentary Billy Joel, and so it goes, I assumed, as a fan of Billy Joel and pop documentaries, which tend toward the light and hagiographic these days, that we were going to be in for a punchy, rousing, upbeat behind-the-music Tribeca appetizer. And so it goes is surely an infectious celebration of Joel's pop magicianship, his indelible qualities as a composer and singer and rock star. And the film worked all too well as an appetizer, since the festival only showed part one of what is, in fact, a two-part HBO documentary, but part one, which is 2 hours and 27 minutes long, takes you right up through 1980, when Joel has already released his 7th album, Glass Houses. So, I feel confident in reviewing it as a standalone experience. And what took me by surprise is the movie's emotional gravity. Directed by Susan Lacey and Jessica Levin, And So It Goes is not a once-over lightly, papering over the dark side portrait of a pop star. It includes a lot of warts, but more than that it shows how Billy Joel's complicated and not always happy life fueled his incandescent and in some ways deceptively buoyant pop. Piano Man, for instance, emerged from the financial catastrophe of Joel's early days as a solo artist. To launch himself out of the scruffy demi-monde of the Long Island rock scene, he'd secured a contract with the only one interested in signing him, Artie Ripp, owner of Family Productions, who'd gotten wind of Joel through Woodstock co-creator Michael Lang. It turned out to be a deal with the devil. Ripp produced Joel's first album, Cold Spring Harbor, 1971, which led off with She's Got Away, quite a first solo track, but to make sure that the songs fit a radio format, Ripp mastered the album at the wrong speed. Joel also received no money. He moved to Los Angeles and, after drawing the interest of Columbia Records, decided to get out of his contract with Ripp by refusing to perform as Billy Joel. This resulted in his taking a gig for 6 months at the Executive Room Piano Bar on Wilshire Boulevard, where he performed standards, billing himself as Bill Martin, complete with exaggerated nightclub singer voice. It was out of this tawdry, eccentric chapter that he wrote Piano Man, and that's why the song is great, because you hear the reality of Joel's experience, his observation of the patrons and the whole Piano Man as everyman vantage, echoed in the song's exultant melancholy. There's a clip of a stadium audience singing along with Piano Man, a sea of arms waving in the air, and it's one of those moments where you feel how deeply that song resonated in Middle America. It made me think back to a Billy Joel concert from 1994, where I saw 50,000 people at the Meadowlands Stadium in New Jersey join together in singing, "A Bottle of White, a Bottle of Red." I find Scenes from an Italian Restaurant to be a grandiose song, but that moment was awesome. As the documentary captures, Billy Joel arrived as a romantic pop star who was also a pugnacious fighter. You hear that duality in an astounding anecdote he relates about what happened after the release of his 4th album, Turnstiles, in 1976. It was an okay but uncertain record with one song, New York State of Mind. That would go on to become a classic, but Joel's career was ambling along without catching fire. He'd assembled a band of Long Island musicians who felt like brothers to him, sort of like his version of the E Street Band, but he knew he needed a producer who could take him to the next level. Joel worshipped the Beatles, and like any deep-dish Beatles fan, he understood how instrumental the legendary producer George Martin was to their success. So Joel called Martin and asked him to produce his next album. Martin came to a concert to see Billy live, and he was won over. He said he'd produce the record, under one condition. Martin wanted to ditch Billy's band and use session musicians. It's not as if this was an off-the-wall idea. Session musicians had fueled the splendor of Pet Sounds as well as Steely Dan's albums, but Joel was having none of it. He told Martin, "Love me, love my band." And that was that. Karma then smiled, as that follow-up record, The Stranger, 1977, was produced by Phil Ramone, who hit upon a mixture of lushness and spontaneity that matched, in its way, what Gus Dudgeon had been doing with Elton John. But when the executives at Columbia heard The Stranger, they didn't think there was one song on it that qualified as a hit single.